Hey, what's up, everybody? The big question everybody has is the market finished correction? Is the bottom in? Are we just having a dead cat bounce? Are we just climbing the stairs just to crash again? Well, we're going to talk about it. So, um, I'm going to go out and say we probably have bottomed in the altcoins. Now, for Bitcoin, it's still a big question mark. Um, the wave structure is a little difficult, but I'm going to give you reasons why I think the bottom is in. But I'm also going to give a couple reasons why I don't think so. Um, but at the end of the day, we're close. So that's what matters. So the first thing, right? I mean, just look at, Theta Fuel, for example. I mean, look at it. It's looking nice. It's ripping to the upside. It's back at its retracement levels, right? If I take this here and I put it all the way down, I mean, you're sitting right at the 702 right now. So it's looking pretty good there. Um, it would appear, obviously, we probably need a pullback or some sort of consolidation, right, before we continue higher. And I think that's going to come with the whole market. And I'm going to explain that as well. I mean, just really quick, I mean, look at Theta here. We came down 55%, right? We had a massive liquidation event. We had a pretty significant bounce, and we held it very strong. A lot of conviction there, right? And now we're starting to pump higher. So to me, it appears that the bottom is in. Now, for Bitcoin, right, we still have the problem of the bull market support band, right? We still have it way down here. Now, that could be overshadowed because of Total 2 and the altcoins. But real quick, XRP is currently starting to make a move. The problem with it is it's moving too fast, right? So anytime you have a big correction like this, you dump all the way down. When you come all the way back up, usually you're going to get some resistance in here, right? That's typically what happens, which will then result in the price not continuing to dump down, but rather flagging out like this. Basically just flagging out, right? Sort of like this, trying to get back to the low. I don't think we'll break the low. I think we're going to get down here, but I think eventually it's going to continue higher. Now, doesn't that look much better? Doesn't that look more plausible, right? So let me just move this out of the way. Now, which one you think looks better, right? We come down, we hit here, and then we just sign a go. Obviously, when you zoom out on that, it just doesn't seem appropriate, right? Especially obviously, hey, if it happened, that would be amazing. Let's go. But typically, you get some pullback, right? So something like this, right? Where, the price comes back up and then it revisits the low. Let me show you an example right here. The price, right? It came all the way down and it had that liquidation event. Then the price came all the way back up, right? And then it revisited, and then it pulled all the way back down. But look, it didn't break the low. Here's the low. Same thing happened here, right? We came all the way up, and then we came down. But look, it didn't break the low. But the price had to come back down, especially since it's below the bull market support band. So what does this have to do with Bitcoin and the bottoming process? Well, this is going to sort of shape the narrative of why I believed we bottomed. I mean, first of all, just look at that wick. I mean, remember, this liquidation event was the biggest in crypto history, right? And when liquidation events occur, they take out all the leverage. They basically flip the order books upside down, and everything's kind of like a clean slate, right? So the market can it's like, how when you're on your phone and you're doing things on your phone, and then it starts to freeze and it starts to stop. So what do? You turn your phone off and you restart it, and then it restarts, and then you clear your cache, you close all your tabs, right? You kind of restart your phone and then it starts to work better, right? Maybe you turn your Wi-Fi on, turn it back off again to connect better to the internet. We've all been there. So that's kind of what happened on this big red candle day right here. So now people, obviously, when that occurs, what do people do? They take advantage, right? People who have cash on the sidelines, they buy the dip. So then it causes a massive reaction back to the upside. But what occurs is people, this scared a lot of people, right? And the people who didn't sell now have an opportunity to sell if they so choose to, right? So what happens is all the people buy the dip, the price comes all the way back up about 50% of the breakdown candle. A lot of times it likes to come right around there, right to here. So somewhere in this block here. Now I don't know if it's going to do that on the first try, but that's typically sort of the reaction, right? So I wouldn't suspect it getting back above the bull market support band without a decent retracement. So again, what happens is people are buying the dip, and then as we come back up, people who didn't get the chance to sell now can sell the retracement, right? So they wait for the bounce and then they sell it, then the price keeps going down. The reason why I don't think the price is going to keep going down is, again, the big liquidation. Just look at this over here, right? This is just an example. We came back up and then we came down, right? And then it continued higher. So just to give us a little visual representation, right? I believe the price, right? And this is very sort of unorthodox, to do it publicly is to write a sort of a pathway. But just to give us a representation. Now, it's not going to do it exactly, but something, we come back down, right? Make 3 waves to the downside, fill in a little bit of these gaps down in here, right? And then start to accelerate to the upside. Now, it's not going to look like that, obviously, but basically we need to come back down and not break this low. So we come back up, we come back down somehow, and then we can make the attempt, right? Because what happens is, we're getting exhausted, right? Everybody who bought the dip, right? Now we're continuing higher. Now more people are buying, but eventually you run out of buyers, and then people take their profit, the ones who didn't get to sell. Then we pull back, and then we continue higher. So now it can totally do something like this, right? I don't know if it's going to take that long. I don't think so. I think it's going to be a little quicker, but essentially something like that, right? Let's look somewhere else. Okay, so here's another good example. Look at this. We essentially came all the way down. You see the wick, right? That liquidity. It broke this low here, right? It broke the low, and it grabbed that liquidity, and then it bought back up real quickly. And that's kind of what we like to see. So something like this, right, where we come up, we hit the bull market support band, and then we bull flag down, and then we continue higher. So that's really, so instead of this one, I would really hope for it to be something like this. So if I had to come out with my main idea, it would probably be something like this. Maybe we go a little higher. Maybe it's done now. Maybe not. This is not financial advice, right? I'm just giving us sort of a visual representation of why I think the bottom should be in. And the big part of it, right, is the altcoins not breaking below their bull market support band. So here's the deal. So here we go right here. So we have total 3, right? Now, total 3 and total 2 and others, they all had an A, B, and a C. They had the liquidation event that occurred and that bounced right off the bull market support band. That right there is a textbook bottom, right? We took out the low. We had a sufficient enough liquidity. The only issue, right, is Bitcoin. Bitcoin did not do it. So I think the market makers did that on purpose. The market makers, and the only reason, right? I mean, I talked to a couple Elliott Wave guys, and they're looking at the current price and the short time frames, and they're saying, yeah, it's a little challenging right now. So the reason why I think they're making it challenging is because they want to have doubt in us, right? Maybe it's the opposite. Maybe, because a lot of people believe, including myself, we need to get down here somehow, some way. But the way they, sort of took out the low, but really didn't take out the low, makes me think maybe that was all we got, right? So, for example, again, on the 4-hour chart, we have sort of this divergence here, right? So typically what occurs is when this is another reason why I think we potentially bottom. Now, if I had to put a percentage on it, I would say I'm about 60 to 65% sure that the altcoins have bottomed, and I'm about 55% sure to 60% sure that Bitcoin has also bottomed. Now, I think if Bitcoin continues down, right, maybe we come back up a little bit, continue down to the bull market support band. The altcoins, then to me, this would be a WXY, first of all. Because the proportionality, it would start to not look like an ABC, right? Because you have, 1, 2, 3. This is too big of a 4 to get 5. Obviously, it could happen. But if wave 4, if this is 1, 2, 3, 4, if wave 4 is done, it should be finishing very quickly because we already have a 3-wave shape. It should be stopped. It should be basically done. And we should start rolling over if that's the case, right? Obviously, it can get much more complex than that. But the big thing I wanted to express is liquidity. It's all about liquidity. So here's the low right here. And we can see, right? We can see the price coming down ever so slightly and grabbing that liquidity. Then we quickly reverse. So typically what happens is, as the wave comes down, right, you get this flush down to the support. You get a bounce and you continue down. The issue to me was when we hit this low, we bounced back up and then we got that final flush. So this was the moment for Bitcoin to get stuck under the support, but it didn't. It quickly came back and it actually took out this high, and then it held it as support, and it's continuing to challenge this high. So to me, that kind of reminds me of something that is gonna hold the low, maybe come back down and 50% or maybe even a little bit lower, and then start to work its way out of there, right? So that's kind of how it reminds me. Because if we were going to break it, number one, we should have already broke it when we came down, right? Because you can see, right, we created the bullish divergence, first of all, and then here was our main, our support line, right? We came down, we bounced up, and then look at this. We broke below. So right here, let me zoom in. So this was the moment where it should have gotten stuck in here. So for example, right, we came down, and then we have this bottom. We come up, and now let's go. We're going down. So nothing goes down in a straight line. We bounce up, and we should have gotten stuck in here like this and had a 1, 2, 1, 2, and then start getting down, right? And we, when we come down, we retest it as resistance. Bump your head, bump your head, bump your head, right? You can't get back above it, and then you fall. So that's typically how it would go, right? And eventually you work your way down here. and then you start to accelerate. Now, in a perfect world, that would have happened, and then we would have had no question in our mind that, you know, the bottom is definitely in, right? Uh, you know, statistically, probability, right, is in our favor. But I think the market makers did that on purpose so that we wouldn't we would be kind of on the fence, like, is it in, is it not? I'm gonna wait, you know, and then you miss the train, right? So that's kind of how I'm looking at Bitcoin and the altcoins. Now, could I be wrong? Absolutely. Always know that. This is my hunch, right? This is not me coming out confirming it. This is just me having a hunch. You know, my intuition. You know, that gut feeling, that inner voice. It's saying, yeah, it's probably in. So it's not really what I like to hear. I would have loved it to come down here, right? So let's talk about that. In the event that it does come down and test, so 1, 2, 3, and this is 4, and then we come down for 5, right? So it's just, you know, and that's what I think a lot of people are expecting, is for it to, you know, finish this A, B, C, because it doesn't look done, right? It doesn't look done. It looks like it just barely stopped here. But again, when you have a resistance line here, the market makers see all the stop losses right here, and they know liquidity is resting right under here. So they creep it, and then they grab it, right? So if it was going to continue down, it would have started a cascading event then, but instead it bounced back up. Now, maybe they're planning for something later in a separate wave. So for example, maybe we come up, boom, like this, right? And then we have 3 waves up. So 1, 2, 3. And then we work our way down. They could totally do that. And then that would be sort of, you would have 1 or 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. That would be a WXY. And that would come at a later time. And then we would continue higher. So it's kind of like a falling channel where it takes out the low, gets everybody scared, grabs the liquidity, and takes off. That's kind of like on the back burner. That's for a later day. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. But I'm talking about, you know, in this current wave, are we going down? It appears it's bullish. I mean, and then also look at this. We also have, right? We have a shoulder, we have a head, and we have a shoulder, right? And look at this. We're cupping into the resistance. We're sort of creeping our way out of here. So to me, it looks pretty bullish. I like the way it looks. Now, talking about the altcoins, because that's what really matters, right? At the end of the day, it's all about the altcoins. That's gonna pay the bills right there. So for XRP, it is already so high, right? Look at this. This is another reason why I'm leaning towards 65 to 70% sure that the altcoins the low is in, because if you look, we're about 30% off the low. I mean, actually more. I didn't even measure it right. 30+% off the low. So if Bitcoin, right, is going to work its way down, yes, I do think XRP will as well. But the point is the low in? I think so, right? So we come back up. We meet our resistance up in here. Then we start working our way back down, but we work it correctively. We're not impulsing down, finishing that 5th wave. It's sort of flagging out in here, right? Kind of like how, look at this right here. Here's a good example. Look at this. We came down, right? And this applies with Bitcoin as well. We came down, right? We made a low. We bounced up. We came down. We made a slightly lower low, slightly, very slightly, right? We grabbed that liquidity. Then we moved up. And it appeared like it was going to come up and then back down. But what happened was we came down, but we flagged out in here. I mean, let me zoom in here. You can see, right? We bottomed, we bounced up, and then it's correcting. And look where we got, right? We got about 50% of where this wave landed. So you take this whole wave right here, right? That's exactly what XRP is doing right now. You can see the wave, and it's actually even bigger than that. So we came down. Here's a low. We bounced up. Same thing, right? Just way bigger. And then, I mean, here's another one here, but the one I just had, where did it go? It's right here. So we have this move up, and then we sort of flagged out in here. We found a bottom, a higher low, right? That's the point. That's the whole thing I'm trying to emphasize, is a higher low. We're looking for a higher low because we have the divergence, right? We have the divergence from here to here, right? On the current price, this is just an example. And then we continue working our way up. And the reason why I think so with Bitcoin is because if you look at this, right, when you are in a big move to the downside, you pull up and you barely break the low, and then you come up quickly and retake that resistance as basically support, it kind of, explains that it was just an event to grab liquidity, right? So instead of, right, because a lot of people are anticipating a typical ABC, right? And an ABC is A, B, and a C, where it sufficiently comes down. Like, look how long it comes down. Now, this is an A, B, C, and we barely broke it, right? Which makes us concerned, right? Think about the psychology that the market makers are trying to inflict. They're making us think like, well, I don't know, they're not making us sure. Why? Because they don't want you leveraging up and going long. Why? Because they want to have that doubt. Why? Because if everybody goes long leveraged, then it wipes out, right? We have another liquidation event, essentially, right? So, when they want to pump the price, they make you think that it's not happening, or they give you uncertainty, right? So, and a lot of people on YouTube will wait. They'll say, okay, well, here's our support, or here's our resistance, and here's our support down here, and we're just in the range and we're waiting to see what happens, right? But obviously, right? Obviously, people want more than that, and that's the thing. That's where we get into Elliott wave, fractals and things like that. So I think last week, Blockchain Backer put out a fractal, and it was similar to the one I shared. And basically, it gave us confluence that the bottom is probably in. Now, I believe he said he's not too sure about Bitcoin. He doesn't have a strong opinion one way or the other. I don't either, but I'm starting to think that the bottom is in. I mean, you can see right here, we're starting to, develop a downsloping trend line, right? So if the price were to sweep the lows and it came back up, right, and then it came down, I wouldn't see it breaking this. I would really want to see it, continuing to hold up. So that's kind of where I'm at, of where, the bull market support band thing. And then another thing that gives us conviction, right, is when you look at, the price of THETA, when you look at, and not just THETA, but all the altcoins, right? So where's total, let me get to total 3 here. So this is the big one here. This is all the altcoins, right? And that's sort of the big thing. So if Bitcoin does come down, right, and revisits its bull market support band, I don't think we'll break that low. I think we'll come back down, obviously, and retest the bull market support band, right? Maybe test it a few times. It'll feel like it's going to break down, right? But then it's kind of like a spring, right? A liquidity grab. Maybe here's your, I know people have their stop losses here. grab it ever so slightly, then come back up. So to me, I think we should be getting a local top sometime this week, and then flagging out, right? So we come up and then we'll start to flag out in here. And we could revisit the lows, we may not. But again, it's no sense of speculating exactly which way it's going to go and this and this and that. The point is, the big questions people have is, number one, is the bottom in? Number two, are we going to continue breaking out, right? So for me, I believe the bottom is in, number one. Number two, are we going to break out? I believe we will. We just gotta, work through these retracement levels. You can see here, if I put the retracement up, we're sitting at the 50%. So I think, if we need to kind of cool down a little bit. We have a 1, 2, 3. We have a 3-wave shape. I will tell you this: if we go up fast and we hit this 618 and we get strongly rejected like this, then that's sort of the signal that we're gonna start flagging out in here. And that's kind of what I'm thinking, is some type of counter move, right? We have this up move, we need some kind of counter move at some point to begin that next impulsive move. So there's a couple ways that can look, right? Obviously we can develop a base down in here, right? We could develop a base where this thing comes up, comes back down, comes back up, comes back down, and then goes. And that's sort of the best way it can happen, because it really establishes that support. Another way, right, where it kind of leaves people behind, is this is just a simple V bottom. We come up here even higher, getting up back up to here. I'll put it this way: if we get all the way back up here, then it's pretty certain that the bottom would be in at that point. And then we flag out, and then we go. And that's kind of how I'm looking at it. So now we'll talk about individual coins. But real quick, let me just explain this. If Bitcoin, if I'm wrong, right, and Bitcoin dumps down to the bull market support band, which again, it's not about being right or wrong. It's about knowing if the bottom is in or not. So essentially, I'm about 55-60% sure. But again, if we come down here, it would be actually a good thing, not a bad thing, right? So if it did happen, in other words, I wouldn't be upset to be wrong. I would actually be relieved, right? Relieved knowing that it got to test it. So if we did come down and test it, fine. To me, that's not the issue. The issue is the altcoins. So if that occurred, then we want to see a higher low with the altcoins. So XRP, THETA, whatever, comes back down, makes a higher low. We flag out and then continue higher. And that would be sort of my best case scenario, right? That would be, if I can choose what the market will do, I would have Bitcoin do this: come all the way down, finish A, B, C, and then go. And then for the altcoins, I would have them come down, make a higher low, and then go, right? So, but the reason why I think Bitcoin won't test it, even though it should, is because the alts in that liquidation event, right? Number one, the alts already tested the bull market support band. Number two, we had that big liquidation event, right? And number three, Bitcoin already took out the low right here. So you can see we came down, we grabbed that liquidity, right? If it was going to come down, it should have came down, bumped its head, and then continued down. But it didn't. It quickly recovered, right? So all of the liquidity down here, right, it all got absorbed basically, and it came back up here. So that's not really proportional of an ABC, right? Because look at wave 2 and look at wave 4. Look how much bigger it is, right? The proportionalities aren't matching up. So obviously we can hit it at a later date. Like I said, the more complex thing where we come down, we come back up, and then come back down, right? And this would be a separate wave. This would be a completely separate wave, right? So this is one wave itself. Now it's trying to branch out into its own wave, right? So this could be just a connector for the finishing wave to the downside. So we'll have to wait and see. But the point is, most people are hodlers, most people invest, most people just want some assurance that, we're going to continue higher. And to me, the price does look very bullish right now. We've been in an uptrend. I mean, this is a beautiful uptrend, right? We're consistently going up. We have a little correction here, a correction here. At the end of the day, does it really matter ever so slightly? Not really. But for me, I like to try to provide the most value I can and give you my, the best, my opinion of how I'm interpreting it the best I can, right? So, and a lot of the conviction that I have that the low is probably in for the altcoins is because that amount of liquidation. I mean, we went down 55% and we have a clear ABC, right? We have a clear A, B, and a C, and here's the low, and it totally took out the low, right? So that, and then we got bought up quickly. We made a higher low, we made a base, and we're starting to creep our way up. So to me, this is not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. To me, this is the ending of this wave, right? So even if Bitcoin does eventually go back down, I don't think, again, I think the low will hold, right? Because a lot of times we come back up and we'll come down, we'll make a higher low, and then we'll retest the bull market support band and then continue higher. So this is the price of theta, and that's what I'm thinking. Look at it here, right? Here's a good example, right, where we came down, we came back up, and then we worked our way down. Here's the low, we made a higher low off the bull market support band. Now, that is all is contingent on Bitcoin staying above the bull market support band. And so, I mean, to me, we don't even have to talk about that because it hasn't even tested it yet. It's so bullish that it hasn't even wanted to come down. But let's talk about theta real quick here. To me, the price of theta is looking actually pretty bullish. Let's zoom in. To me, it looks like we have, right, we came back up, we came down, and we made a very tight range in here. We broke that range, right? And then we back tested it. So the price is, right, we came up, we broke this resistance line, we came back under, we held it, and now we're holding it as support. So this looks bullish. And what does this look like? It looks like a cup and a handle. So it kind of looks like the neckline's right there. So if I put this here, and then I'll put this right about here, that gives us a target of approximately 280, right? So that's kind of how I'm looking at the price of theta. It's looking bullish. It looks better right? Because it looks like it has a more clear shape. Now, XRP, just to compare, right, it's definitely charging a lot harder and faster, but there's not good, I mean, there's not a good structure like Theta to me. We have the base down here, right? We broke out. It looks kind of corrective, right? But we're impulsing. Look at that. We're almost to the bull market support band for the price of XRP. Let's see here. So XRP is up currently 33% off the low. And then Theta doesn't look like that. It looks about, oh, never mind, 37% off the low. I take that back. So yeah, Theta definitely is looking. It just looks better because it looks like a more cup and handle shape. You know what I mean? So we'll see how that goes. Now, it could be. Short-term analysis is always difficult to gauge because there's a lot that's going on here. For example, we have 1, 2, 3, we have 1, 2, 3, right? And then we have 1, 2, and 3. Question is this 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5? Well, then if that's the case, it would be an A, B, and a C. So we would have an A, B, C somewhere, back in this range up in here. And then once we get that final push to the upside, right? So it'd be A, B, C. We get back up here. Then we start working our way back down and flagging out. And this is where the true test comes. This is where, the real test becomes, right? Hopefully this turns into 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. But probably will just be an ABC, and then we come back down. Here's the bull market support band. Maybe we test it again before lifting off, and then what that does is it creates, a nice base of support, and then we can continue higher. So once we get into that yellow box, I would expect the price to flag out a little bit. I mean, it could start now, it could already be finished. So, but yeah, I think it's bullish. I think when you zoom out, I mean, goodness, look how bullish that is. I mean, this thing could take off at any moment, really. We came down, right? The second candle was the consolidation. Our previous 4-day candle was engulfing the prior one. And now the current is trading above. Weekly chart. I mean, look at the weekly chart. We had a bullish hammer candle, right? So yeah, I'm very bullish on this. Now, the week just started, right? So sometimes, we wick into the bull market support band, we wick into it. Sometimes this thing can wick down into it, but still have a nice tail on it, right? So you have these rising tails, right? And then the following week you get this big breakout. And then we continue hauling butt. So those are my ugly candles, my representation. And then at that point, once we get to that $5 area, then basically, we made it between $5 and $8. So everything that was ever said, going all the way back to October, all the way down here at 60, 65 cents, that was the moment, right, when, you needed to strap on and say, okay, this is gonna be life-changing, right? I mean, you can see in here we had a Wyckoff accumulation structure. We hit the low, right? Here's the low here. We took it out, right? But then we quickly recovered, And this is just another example of what I think Bitcoin is doing, right? We barely, right, here's the low. We barely took out the low. We came all the way back up. We got rejected. Then we came down. We basically flagged out. It appeared like it was going to keep crashing. But instead, it created this base down in here. So it came down, quickly shot up, came down in a pullback, created the base, and inside this base, that's when I started doing videos. That's when I came out and said, let's go, right? So once we hit this target, that'll be our retracement level. Doesn't mean I'm selling. It just means, hey, now this is the big moment where we have to really, focus. So, we can be in a rise, crash, retrace, all the way down into reaccumulation sideways. We can simply come up here, flag out, go, right? So a lot of different things can happen in here. But essentially, we are cupping our way out of here. So we can see the sell side of the curve, the base, the bottom of the curve, and now we're in that buy side of the curve. So to me, I'm very bullish on Theta and the rest of the market. So, I'm trying to articulate it the best way I can when it comes to the altcoins and Bitcoin not testing the bull market support band, because I can just come out with a 5-10 minute video saying the bottom is in it, we're going to flag out and that. But I want to show you reasons why I think so. And it's kind of hard sometimes to convey that message because there's a lot going on, right? It's kind of hard and difficult to explain. But essentially, because there's a couple things that could happen, but then there's also the things that already happened, right? So for me, I try not to focus on so much what will happen, but what's already happened to give us an idea of what is gonna eventually happen. And to me, I'm thinking we get up here, we flag out, and we continue higher. Now, if we get rejected here and come down and we take out this low, then we want it to be quickly. It needs to be fast, right? It needs to come down quickly, take it out, and then be done with it. And then you can kind of draw a trend line here, from here to here to here. So that's sort of, keep that trend line there, and that's kind of where, if we did take out the low, that's kind of where I would think it would take it out. So I got I got Theta. I mean, look at Theta. It's still pumping here. Let's look at the smaller time frame real quick. I'm just kind of all over the place today. I haven't looked at the charts really a lot recently, so I'm still, trying to think about what's happening here. This also looks like a inverse head and shoulders. I was looking yesterday. We had a beautiful flat here on the price of Theta, right? We came here, we broke out, we came up, right? We had an A, B, C. I mean, look at that flat right there. We came down, we chop, right? We broke the top and then we came all the way down. We had one more hit to the low, right? And then when you hit that low, what happens? Well, you can see the price shoots up and then it flags out in here. And then it continues going. And this is kind of what I'm expecting for the whole market, right? As soon as we get this finished pump, we want to flag out. And then I would consider, even adding, more to the position, right? You don't want to add so much if the price is already ripping to the upside. You kind of want to wait for that, unless you bought the bottom. But to me, it's looking like maybe a shoulder, a head, and another shoulder, or a cup and a handle, right? We're right at that resistance. I mean, we can break out at any moment. Not going to the moon, but this is a 15-minute chart, but we can get going pretty quickly. Let's see, let me put one there, and I'll put one there. Yeah, so once we get out of that zone, it'll look pretty good. Now, we already do have, 1, 2, 3, 4, and maybe we get 5. Probably play around up in here. Maybe hit the high one more time. But when you zoom out, it appears like, you can see all this gap in here, right? You can see the gap from here to here. So, when we break through here, it probably will be quickly. Probably will occur fast. So, yeah, I'm bullish on Theta. I think we're going to go a little higher, right? Because typically you bottom, you bounce up quickly, and then you kind of flag out a little bit. Maybe it's higher, maybe it's lower. Tough to say. And then boom. So yeah, that's kind of how I'm looking at Theta Fuel. Same thing. We came up, let's flag out, continue rocking. Just real quick here on Theta, what would be the target based off this correction here? So based off this correction, right, I can measure it a couple of different ways. So check this out. So I'll take my trend-based fib extension. I'm going to put it from the bottom of this wave. I'm going to go all the way to the top of the wave. And then I'm going to come all the way down to the bottom of the wave. So our first target obviously would be the 1-to-1 extension at $4.64. Let me make sure that's close enough. And then the big target would be $6.50. So, or $6.44. So right here is our target. So I would say between $5.50 to $6.50 would be our upcoming target. And then if we hit a 4.236, we're right back at the all-time high, right? So that's kind of what I'm thinking, is that $4 to $6 range. And I'll put the regular retracement up here, and I'll come down, and it's a little lower. It's about $5, but it's the price of Theta, man. Theta's just, when Theta goes, it moves with a vengeance. And I know there's some new things coming out with Theta. I guess a couple things are happening, right? Drop them in the comment section below, and I'll take a look. I think it had to do something with let's see, Theta network to conduct schedule. Update partners with flights. I want to say it was like something to do with the Edge node and a partnership. I don't really keep so much up to date with all the fundamental and the sort of the business side of it. I do, follows, but I just can't retain all the information, because my world is, let me see the chart, like the old expression, show me the chart and I'll tell you the news. Well, even not knowing there's any news, it looks like there's going to be news. It looks like, we're going to have some positive news coming. But yeah, this thing looks pretty nice. It looks very bullish. Now let's talk Ultra Bull. So obviously my main idea, right, has been come up, we'll flag out, we'll go. There is a possibility where this is a 1-2, and we come up here and we take out this top. We come up quickly, not in a straight line, but a little pullback, we'll come up, we'll take out this top. Then I would see like an A, B, C, play around in here and then quickly continue. So that's like sort of the Ultra Bull scenario. So if we come up and break, $3.20, then I would expect maybe like a flat or like an ABC, a quick one, and then a continuation. So there's that alternative. Now, ultra bear, if Bitcoin loses the bull market support band and it needs to retest lower prices, then I'm looking at theta to come down between these two areas. Right? Actually, let me make sure that's right. Actually, I'm going to put this one here. Between $1.22 and $1.43. So that's sort of, the worst case scenario. And how that would look, it would be, we have 1, 2, 1, 2. Maybe we come up, right? One A, B, and a C. We tag the low, and that would be a big 1, 2, 1, 2. That would be very, very bullish. That would be extremely bullish, because you basically, massive volatility, right? You come up, you get rejected. You hit the bull market support band, you break out, you come all the way down like a slingshot, right? You pull the sling back and you back test perfectly, and then bam, you accelerate to the upside. Now, that would be terrible for the next couple, maybe months, but that would offer a good buying opportunity and a huge impulse to the upside. But if we lost, this is our mainland right here. If we lost that, it would be very bad. Very bad. We cannot lose $1.20 at all. If we did, it would just delay the inevitable, right? Because we all hold theta. Inevitably, it's gonna melt faces in the bullish direction. So that's kind of the ultra bull, ultra bear look. But I like to be in the middle and just be conservative with it. I'm still looking for a fifth wave. Right? We got 1, 2, 3, 4. We still need 5. We still need a fifth wave. So that's kind of how I'm looking at it. Anything else here? If I pull the retracement, we're still on the bottom of the barrel. We're still below the 236. So let's go to theta fuel. And here's another reason why I think the low is probably in. So you guys know how I feel. I think I put a video out before that liquidation event saying theta fuel is looking very interesting. And I'm not lying. I wish theta fuel had futures trading on the exchange I use. Maybe it's on the other exchange, but I would like to use a little bit of leverage on a trade here. Not now, and not financial advice, but soon. But anyway, I was looking at this, right, as a Wyckoff range, and for the last several weeks we've been looking at this area right here, which is the Wyckoff accumulation. And basically this thing is getting ready to do something. And this is another reason why I think the alts have bottomed out. This is another reason why I think Bitcoin is probably not going to go down to the bull market support band. And if it did, it would still imply that the alts hold their low. Is because, when I look at structures like this, right, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, go, right? That's Wyckoff. 1, 2, 3, 4, go. So essentially, we had this beautiful, rounded bottom in here, right? Rounded out, and now we're looking right at that final area. So this final area, we've been talking about when we break this high And this side, we play around in here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever, continue higher. So that's what we've been doing. We've just been bouncing, bouncing, bouncing. We're basically accumulating the support, right? And you look at it and you say, you know, most people look at it and say, well, it doesn't look like that, right? They look at it like, you know, here's your resistance, or here's the top of the range, here's the bottom of the range, and the price is at the top. So I don't want to buy it. But that's not true. The price broke the top, and now it's back testing the top of the range. And it's going back and forth, back and forth. And the more it does that, the more volume profile gets built into it, the more of a base you get, the more confidence in the move. So the next move is going to be a big fat move to the upside. And you can, not that big, but you can see kind of the gap in here. So I'm looking at between here, just on the next move, right, in here. So somewhere in that area. And it can go as high as this area over here, right, just to finish out this wave. So to me, it looks like we have a 1, 2, and then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5, and that's whole thing 1, 2, 3, and then we pull out in here for a wave 4 before getting another wave 5. So still have a ways to go, but again, Theta Fuel looking very bullish. And then zooming in, right, we talked about this a while, and we're starting to get some resistance. This is good, right? I think the top should be, a local top should be coming, right? And we want to flag out in here. We want to flag out, and then it would create a nice base, right? We have an A, we come all the way up in a B, when we were talking about that as a flat, and then we went 1, 2, 3, right? And now we have a 1, 2, and now we're sort of in between these two waves. So it would appear like it needs to consolidate a little bit in here before continuing its move higher. So that's how I'm seeing it. Now, there's always a chance we could come down 1, 2, and 3 down to the bull market support band, take out this liquidity. Because here's the low. The thing with Theta Fuel is it didn't grab any liquidity on this dump. So we could slightly take out these lows if it wanted to before accelerating to the upside. So that's kind of how I'm looking at Theta Fuel and Theta. XLM, same thing. We're coming up here to this resistance, right? The bull market support band, all this in here. We're probably going to bump our head and then flag out in here for a little while before continuing higher. And that's kind of how I'm looking at everything. Dogecoin. Doge looks like a flat. We had an A, we had a B, and then we had 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5. So it looks like a running. So Dogecoin looks like a running flat, and then we had a 1, 2, and now we're sort of billowing up in here. So to me, Dogecoin definitely looks pretty bullish. I don't hold Dogecoin. I like to look at the top dog. So I like to look at Dogecoin for references, like, because it's the number one meme coin, right? So looking at the chart gives me an idea of what all the memes are doing. But if I had to guess, this thing looks like it needs to get a little bit higher. It looks like it wants to go a little bit higher. Maybe challenge this in here and then flag out. And then flag out before continuing. And then you would have a nice shoulder. You would come up for your head, and then you would develop another shoulder and continue higher. So that's kind of how I'm looking at Dogecoin. Again, for XRP, we just hit the bull market support band right now. So we'll see if we can break out. But what XRP's biggest challenge is is we need to, let me do this. I'll draw the downward resistance line. You could argue that it already broke it, right? But we'll be conservative and we'll say it hasn't. And we'll put our line right about there. So we're coming at a crossroads, right? We have this downward resistance line, and then we have this horizontal resistance line. So we got stuck in here. So what could happen is, we start to flag out in here. Here's your low, we flag out, we billow up some support, and then bam, we break out. And then that would be basically, we come up and we basically flag out and break above that downward resistance line. So is it possible we just keep pumping? Yeah, it is. But again, it's, you kind of want to see the structure come in. And if it did, hey, again, I'll be pleasantly surprised. That would be an amazing thing to see. But yeah, that's kind of how I'm looking at the whole market here. Looking at the weekly chart for XRP, it looks bullish. Again, the same thing that happened with Bitcoin. Look at this. And I've been talking about this for a while. Going back over here, saying how much this reminds me of the previous time, right? We had the support here. We came down, we took out the liquidity, right? We grabbed it and to accelerate to the upside. Look what happened over here. I've been talking about this for weeks. I know some people are starting to talk about it now, but essentially we have this support, right? And you could see the price coming up, bounce, and then we come down, we grab the liquidity, right? Here's your support. That's the same, and the same thing with Bitcoin. It's kind of the same thing. That's another reason why I think Bitcoin's probably bottom. You could see the support in here. We bounce below the support, and then we quickly get bought back up, right? And then, but look at this. We didn't flag out at all in here. When we broke above, right, back above that resistance line, right, we came down, we broke below it, we grabbed that liquidity, and we just instantly went. You can see this area we didn't really flag out except for right here. So look at this. It's the same thing. Here's the bull market support band, right? And then here's your, let me draw it like this. Here's your downward resistance line. You have a wick there, so I'll put it right about there, right? And we're going to compare it to the other side. I know this is a long video, but I mean, there's a lot of information that I need to get out. So I could have did it in 2 videos, but I'm just lazy, I guess. Just got way too much going on over the weekend. So I apologize for the length of the video, but you can always put it on 1.5x speed, and I can then sound like an auctioneer, and that'd be kind of funny. So I've been told. But yeah, we came down, we broke the low, we grabbed the liquidity, we came up, and then look what we did. We flagged out in here, right beneath the bull market support band. So you can see right here, right? We came up, we hit the bull market support band. We had an A, B, C, and then we basically went to the moon. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this fractal here. So here we go. Here's a fractal here. Let me see if I can make it a little smaller. It's kind of big. There we go. I guess, oh, actually I need to be on the daily chart, huh? Okay. So something like this, right? Where it's the same thing. Now you can ignore this wick. Look at this wick. It came all the way down and it barely took out that liquidity. And that's kind of how it likes to go, because it knew, right? The market makers knew that the price is going to go to the stratosphere, right? So it came up, and then instead of flagging out, it came all the way down and it took out that low. I mean, that could totally happen in the event Bitcoin comes down to the bull market support band, but I'm not sure about that. Now, we had, right, this downward resistance line, right? Look at the bull market support band. We came up, we first of all, we grabbed the liquidity in here. Step one, right? Then we shot up, right? Step two, we hit the bull market support band and the downward resistance line, and then we flagged out, and then we continued higher. So let's see if that's gonna be the case. I've always looked at this as reaccumulation, right? So you guys know kind of where I'm at on that. So we have a rise, crash, retrace, reaccumulation, sideways blast off, right? Same thing here. We have a rise, crash, reaccumulation. Rise, crash, retrace, reaccumulation, sideways blast off. So this area right here is matching up perfectly right here. So there's all of this all of these points of confluence, and it's just adding more and more and more and more. So it's looking very nice, right? Now, could this get rejected and continue down? Yeah, it could, right? We came up, we shoot up, right? And this is why I don't think we're just going to do that. We're either going to flag out and go, or even come down and take out the low. In the event Bitcoin hits the bull market support band, I'm looking at between really that 33, 39 cent area. So probably about 37 cents. And, that could be the case where we have 1, 2, 3, and then continue higher. So we'll cross that bridge when we get there. I don't think that's the case. But yeah, we hit the bull market support band, so I would expect some resistance to come in here. I want to see an ABC. If we get something like this, it's going to look good. If we get something like this, where we come back up and then start to dump again, then we've got to be a little bit cautious. But I believe the low will hold. So at the end of the day, when you look at the total three, right? This is the total. This is all the altcoins, and you zoom out, right? They look pretty nice. We had an A, and this came up and took out the top. So this was a flat, and this is a completed expanded flat. And kind of in my opinion, right? We have an A, B, and then we had this C leg. Now you could say that this is 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5, totally, right? But again, the amount of liquidations that occurred on the order book, the fact that it got bought up right at the bull market support band, I'm kind of believing that the bottom is going to be in. I mean, even if I put the retracement of this flat here, I mean, we already went below the 1618. So usually in an expanded flat, you have a 1618 hit, and that's another reason why I think the bottom should be in for the altcoins. So yeah, what do you guys think? We still have the $5 trillion prediction from this guy right here. He knows something. I mean, come on, think about it. He knows something. I think the lawsuit's going to be finishing up here. And wouldn't that be just sort of like rocket fuel, right? If that occurred at that moment where we're already breaking out. So very interesting. We are going into summer, which tends to slow down, but we still have the rest of April and May and even June. So we'll see. But anyways, I appreciate everybody tuning in. If you can, that would be amazing if you can hit that like button and drop a comment. I read all the comments. I might not be able to respond to all the comments, but I definitely, I work my way to them, and I do see them. So I appreciate all of the love and support, and really helps me continue motivates me to keep doing it. I love helping people and teaching and trying to explain the thought process. But anyways, if you guys wanted to support the channel, you can always do so through the YouTube tip jar, or even a super thanks is definitely always welcomed. And if you have any charts you want me to take a look at, you can drop them below. I was actually thinking about looking at Tesla. Does anybody hold Tesla stock? Would anybody be interested in that? You can let me know. And then doing a rapid fire video sometime this week. I don't think I got one out last week. Just been very busy. But anyways, I will catch you guys on the next one. Cheers.